Good to go?
Yeah, let's just get on with it. Let's just do it.
So the first question is a nice easy one. Could you just please tell me your name?
I can, I'm Freya. I live with my husband and we've got 3 boys. They're 8, 6 and 4. And middle one diagnosed with autism. Older one suspected autism, ADHD. And obviously they have moments when life's great and life's busy. They have lots of very difficult moments.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm mum to a 24-year-old son and a 19-year-old young lady, both on the autistic spectrum with ADHD. So with that comes some challenges. The famous saying for parents is you can't pour from an empty cup, and I think that's very true. You have to look after your own well-being because otherwise you can't support your family. So crisis is when we were having to have numerous police call-outs to the house to help us support her, when she was just really struggling to regulate her emotions and to deal with what was going on in her head, basically. Crisis was when, as a family, we were struggling to cope with that. And it's the point where we kind of felt that she wasn't safe and we weren't safe. That's when it's difficult to know what the right thing to do is. And that's sometimes then when we have to, ring the police for that help because she's self-harming or she's, hurting us and wanting to escape the house. And that's then when she's at the point where we feel we can't help her anymore.
Crisis to me is when there's a problem which you can't instantly solve and which you can see escalating. I mean, some things you know are going to trigger it, so transition is hard. So leaving school at the end of the school year, but you know it's coming. Other things, yes, they're more instant, and it's like a light switch. It's something as simple as someone else walking through his space, and it can be an instant switch to that proves you don't love me, you all hate me, I might as well be dead, and it's a totally over-the-top reaction to what's happened, but it's a reflection of where he is in his frame of mind and how delicate that balance is.
Sometimes you couldn't see it building. I remember one time when we were in hospital, we'd been in there for about 4 days. She was really struggling, and we were in one of the safe rooms of the local children's hospital, and a change of nurse, a different face, somebody new, and this nurse came in, and I would say she looked scared, and my daughter obviously picked up on that, and she possibly had one of her worst meltdowns ever. Our psychiatrist had told us when things got really bad, if we needed a third person, that the police were the service to call, which at the time you just don't think of calling the police. But again, when she's a danger to herself and to others, that we had no choice. And actually, most of the call-outs that we had were really positive, and they were very, very supportive. So for any parent that is going through a difficult time, don't ever be afraid to call them and ask for help.
You don't think of primary school kids as having mental health problems, but actually once you start talking to parents, it's amazing how many do. He's 8 years old and he says things like, I'd be better off dead. And it doesn't matter if you say, no, you wouldn't, and these are the reasons why. Because if someone believes that, just saying that isn't going to even touch the surface. My worst case scenario is that I'm going to visit him as an inpatient in a hospital. And I don't want that.
My name's Danielle Parkinson and I'm a representative from the Cheshire East Parent Care Forum. We represent the needs and views of children and families with special educational needs and disabilities within our local area. I'm also a parent of children who are on the autistic spectrum and have ADHD. Crisis is a very broad term. Types of crisis include your child presenting with anxiety and school refusals, to eating disorders, to self-harm, to suicidal thoughts, for disengaging with education. And crisis ultimately is when your child's mental health is declining and the whole family unit is usually affected by that. In terms of de-escalation, every child will have different complexities. The first thing is trying to understand what your child triggers are and managing them.
When an autistic person is becoming heightened or becoming very overwhelmed, the environment is really, really important. You need a low arousal environment. So what we mean by that is an environment that's calm, that hasn't got lots of background noise, that perhaps you can turn the lights down.
Obviously there are situations that as families we can't avoid, but making sure that your child has that safe place in the home where they can go and relax.
If you can be somewhere where you can be calm, you're far more likely to get your child calm. And once they start to get to the point where they can notice what's around them, being somewhere where it's nice and calm and nice and neutral is going to help them. Just keep talking until you can turn the conversation around. And you'll know when that moment comes. You'll know when they're ready to calm and to move on to something else. It might take 10 minutes. I've sat there for 2 hours before. Just keep talking. And however much you want to scream inside, stay calm and keep talking, because they need you to be the calm one. They need you to be this is okay.
A lot of companies, they have quiet times, so access them because they're really helpful. And as well, you're around other parents that understand. It's really sad, particularly for parents, because, some of them have worked so hard to build a career for themselves, and they have to leave the career because their child's needs are so complex. Working and holding down a full-time job while managing and being on call for your child is virtually impossible, and it's something that I experienced. I couldn't go back to my job.
Afterwards, she was always very distraught and very upset about what she'd done. When she was in Tier 4 services, we got the diagnosis of autism. And I know a lot of parents, once the child has that diagnosis of autism, don't get that support. Every school that the local authority consulted with came back and said can't meet need. And actually that's really not very nice for parents to hear, that the schools can't meet your child's needs. And there was one school and the headmistress rang us up and said, I'd like to meet this young lady, she sounds intriguing, I really want to meet her. And do you know what, that was the most loveliest thing anybody had said. And we went to the school and she started there and she did really well because the mask had come off and she could be who she was. So at last we felt she was somewhere that she felt safe. Sorry.
A GP once said something to me which totally changed my view. You're his mother, you've got the mother's intuition, you tell me what to do. That GP giving me that choice was the most amazing thing, because ever since then I've known, trust my intuition with my kids. And it's one of the most powerful things. Once a parent realises that their intuition is spot on for their kids, it's amazing what it makes you do, because you'll start pushing all those professionals and pushing all those buttons and saying, this is my child, they need this.
So my daughter tends to open up when she's calm, when she's ready to talk about it. And she uses music at the moment to express her thoughts and her feelings and what she's been through. And she started writing songs and recording them. And I think that's fantastic. That's a really good way of her to get rid of those feelings and those thoughts.
Maybe after a particularly difficult meltdown, getting into the car, going to your local park and just walking. You know, particularly if you've got a teenager, I used to do that quite a lot with my child. We'd get in the car, we'd go to the lake, we wouldn't talk. You know, they would listen to their iPad or iPhone, and I would listen to mine, and just being outside and just decompressing.
School holidays are, well, in many ways they're great. Yes, they're exhausting because you've got the kids non-stop, but the change in them is amazing. My 6-year-old, he comes out of himself. And if you ask him, what do you want to do? He just wants to relax, as he says. I'm busy relaxing. Lots of children's centres have got a sensory room of some kind. Not all kids like them, but they're a safe space. And it's a great way for a child to regulate themselves. As they're older, they learn other strategies, but when they're little, it doesn't come naturally. They've got to learn, this is what I can do to calm down again. And a sensory room's a great place for that.
So the impact on the family has been quite significant. It's affected my son. My son's been struggling with his own mental health, and we've had to reach out and get some support for him. I've now got a heart condition. I mean, luckily my husband and I have stayed together throughout all this, but I know a lot of families haven't survived.
When you start out, you feel like you're on your own with it all. Look for what's out there in your area, because most areas have got a carer centre of some sort.
Often you get handed lots of leaflets of lots of different services, and it's really hard to sift through and get a gist of what each service do. So what we try to do in Cheshire East is hold coffee mornings and events where people from all the different services come along, and parents can meet them and find out what it is that they offer, and whether that service will ultimately work for their family.
I've never been to one where you're not made welcome instantly. And you can say literally anything. You can say, my child hits me. And people often say that kind of thing, which you can't say in public. If you walk down the street and said, my child hits me, people would be thinking, what on earth is going on? And someone else in that room will be able to say, I've been there. And it's amazing what a difference it makes to have someone listen. You go out feeling like, actually the world's okay again, and I can go back and I can carry on for the next month before the next meeting.
There's a charity locally in Crewe, and I found that really helpful to go and talk to other parents and share experiences. Lived experiences are so important, and I think we can all learn from people's lived experiences. There's times where I've reached out and had counselling just to help talk it through and work through, I suppose, the trauma we've been through, because it has been extremely traumatic. I have friends whose children are also autistic, so that helps because they understand, definitely.
We're all fighting that same battle. We all want to get our kids from here to fully fledged adults out in the world. We're all going about it our own way, but we're all in it together, and it is amazing.
Self-care is vital, and I think it is often for parent carers the most difficult thing to do. Your child's needs are usually in such demand that it's really difficult to get time on your own. And a lot of it is the practical issues, so, you know, trying to get someone to mind your child when they have complex needs is really difficult. You struggle to switch off as well when you're away from them, particularly if they're having a difficult time.
You have to be careful not to be too rigid. You think, well, I'm going to have a really nice day on that day. I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to go to the spa. You can guarantee that's the day you'll get a call. You've got to come and collect your child. And then you'll feel really stressed again, and you won't have had it. Take your 5 minutes when you can. Accept that it might change at the drop of a hat, but you'll get it next time.
So for any parent that's going through a journey where their child is becoming heightened, having sensory overload, becoming more aggressive, or starting to have mental health issues, it's definitely go and see your GP. Go and talk to your GP. It's the first port of call. If your child is having those mental health problems, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call the crisis helpline. I've spoken to those on numerous occasions and had some good advice.
Reach out in every direction. Keep making a noise. Keep asking everybody until somebody says yes.
Don't be afraid to be that parent, to advocate for your child, because you're the only person that understands them and you know them best. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and make those calls to people. There are people out there to help.
Learn about your child. You have all these preconceived notions about what it's going to be like when you've got a child and watching them grow up. It's a totally new normal, but it is a form of normal. I've always believed children follow paths. Some paths, they twist, they turn, they go back on themselves. They'll end up where they need to be, but go with them. Don't try and drag them down what you think they should do. Go with them and look after yourself along the way.